Welcome to Storm Tracker, your eye on the storm of your Carolina Hurricanes, and your home for the best insight and analysis to keep you totally informed on what's happening with the Canes. Whether it's the latest news on the ice or off the ice, we've got you covered. Now let's begin. Here's your host, Tom Ray.
Well, Chicago Wolves are on a roll, going unbeaten in regulation in their last 5, gaining 8 of a possible 10 points in that span. Wolves are led by the usual suspects, veterans including Justin Robidas, Felix Unger Sorum, and Dominic Fensore, but they're also getting strong contributions from Evan Vierling, Dominic Badinka, and Gavin Bayreuther. So, lots of players stepping up for this team as they continue to play well. And joining me to talk about the recent run and what we can look forward in the coming month with the Wolves, of course, our insider, Andrew Rinaldi. Hey, Andrew, great to have you on board.
Always great to be here, Tom. Thanks for having me again.
Well, for sure. And, you know, the Wolves are playing great hockey. You know, it's been a kind of an up and down season for them, too, in terms of players, because of course, the Canes have been reaching out regularly and trying to pull up some of the players that, of course, were intended to be key players for the Wolves this year. And yet here's the Wolves sitting just 4 points back of division-leading Grand Rapids. What have we been seeing with the Wolves? What's going on?
Yeah, it's the common theme with this league. I know I've said it many times on this pod, and regular listeners are going to hear it again and again and again. No one in this league is going to care when your guys get called up, because everyone goes through it in the American League. But you know, the Wolves have just they've stuck to their identity, and they've continued to just. It's kind of that old next man up cliche, but when literally your next man up is getting called up to the Hurricanes every 5 minutes, well, you just gotta roll with the punches. And you know, the Wolves have they've adhered to their structure no matter who's in the lineup at any given time, and you know, they're finding ways to grind out these wins, and it's been a process for sure, because I think there's a couple hiccups earlier on in the season, but they're starting to kind of really come into their own. And you know, even with the shifting looks in the lineup, there's those core guys that are really kind of leading the way. And I mean, you know, well, we'll get into it, but as the rest of the lineup just kind of follows after the example that they set, the coaches are putting these guys into a position to succeed. And yeah, despite missing a lot of big contributors, they're third in a very competitive Central Division. And you know, I feel like they're on a positive trajectory to keep this momentum moving on in the rest of the season. Yeah,
and you know, they look to be playing a very similar game to the Hurricanes. You know, they play a hard game, a heavy game. Cam Abbott's got them, you know, just really coming together as a team. And you know, you've had some top players out. You know, clearly, I mean, you lost Joel Nystrom for the entire, just about the last month or month and a half. Dominic Fensore has been in and out. Of course, he was called up to the Canes. Charles Alexis Legault wasn't expected to be there for long. Now he's out with a serious injury for an extended period. That's not great for the Wolves. And then some of the forwards as well. You know, we look at some injuries. Juha Jaska has not seen the light of day with the Wolves as yet. So, yeah. And you look at the lineup on the 16th, this recent game against Cleveland, and it's kind of interesting because, you know, you've got I think a line that's really starting to gel and really starting to get it going. And of course, that's the second line with Nikita Pavlichev and of course, Felix Unger Sorum, who's been doing a great job, and Evan Vierling. And we'll talk a little bit about him as well. What have you been seeing with that line?
It's the straw that stirs the drink for this team. It's you really wouldn't expect that, right? Because it's usually that Suzuki, Nadeau, and lately Justin Robidas combination. Right. That's you know, always kind of been the the driver of the play. And while, I mean, they've looked good for sure, it's having that dynamic on the second line. I think that kind of takes those second defensive matchups. It has really opened up a lot of space for these guys. You know, I know we're going to get into Unger Sorum later on, but I can't stop talking good things about this kid. And, you know, Nikita Pavlichev and Evan Vierling are two guys who, you know, when you had Tyson Jost, who's expected to be here, get claimed on waivers. You
Right.
have Bradly Nadeau called up. And, you know, there's all these opportunities for guys to come in and make contributions. You know, I'll admit I didn't really know a whole lot about Evan Vierling coming into this season. And most everyone in Rosemont knows who Evan Vierling is now. And it's those are the kind of stories I love about this league, where these guys, you know, they're coming in out of the coast on an AHL contract and show in and play well and really make a name for themselves. And they've they've been responsible in their own zone. They've the lengths of some of these shifts where they spend in the offensive zone just wears teams out after a time. So you love to see kind of the positive results from even when they're not, you know, putting the puck in the net, just the positive, you know, plus shifts continuously, you know, over and over. It's eventually good things will happen, and they're happening with regularity, and it's helping them to get onto this 5-game point streak that they've been on lately.
Well, and let's talk about Felix Unger Sorum. I mean, he's I think he had a great camp with the Canes this year. You know, we've talked about it before. Last year was not a great year for him. Just 20 points. You know, he just never really got on track. He was playing center for a while. This year, he's back on that right side. He's got 6 goals and 7 assists in 14 games. He's got 5 points the last 5 games. What are you seeing with Unger Sorum?
Confidence. It's all it's confidence. And I think a lot of it is, you know, last year you saw the flashes, but right, he's adjusting to a new league. He's adjusting to a new position. And I think it was just a lot to ask for a 19-year-old in this league to, you know, let's put him in at center and see what happens. And, you know, he just never really looked like he had just the confidence in his own game to take that next step. Like, you could see the flashes there. You could see like he's making a good play. He knows where to be, but either he's a step too slow or he's indecisive, and then the puck's going the other way. So now on the wing, he's got a little more space. He's got that extra year of experience. He knows he's more comfortable there, and he looks like a completely different player, honestly. And, you know, of course, he's a year older. You're going to kind of expect that growth of a guy who's so young, but when he's got those intangibles, that the smarts for the game, understanding like when to kind of pull up and slow the game down, wait for the pass to open up. I mean, it's a lot of fun to see it happen. The Sunday game against Cleveland that just happened this past weekend, he had just this fantastic, I mean, this entry into the zone, the patience to kind of get the cycle going, to go all the way back around in the offensive zone to come up backdoor. The defender didn't even realize that he was there, but Dinka hits him with a pass there, and just one touch. So by the time the defenseman turns around to even defend him, it's already on Vierling's stick and it's in the back of the net. And that's what I'm saying. He thinks the game steps ahead of these other guys, and it's, you know, seeing him playing with that confidence is allowing his game to just continue to skyrocket. And it's been a treat to watch, because I was kind of, not that I wasn't expecting him to grow, but just to do it so quickly after a rough introduction to the league last year. It's been a lot of fun. I'll say that.
Well, he's definitely brought himself back into the attention of the Canes brass for sure. And, you know, he was so impressive. A couple of years ago, you recall, in training camp, and there was so much discussion about should he stay with the Canes and what would happen to him. And, of course, he went back home, but came back this side of the ocean, of course, last year for his first year. We sometimes forget how young he is. And, and the other thing is he's still growing. And this is interesting because one thing I've noticed, certainly in the Canes camp and again with what I've seen so far with the Wolves, he looks stronger to me. And I think it's giving him the confidence out there. He's making plays, and, of course, his shot. He's firing it. He's firing it with conviction this year, and I think that's a big difference as well. And he's got a number of power play goals already, so that's exciting. So great stuff for Felix Unger Sorum, and as you say, Andrew, we'll be watching him closely because he's a lot of fun this year, and I think he's a guy that's getting himself back in the trajectory of being a possible Cane at sometime not too far out. So that's exciting. Now, somebody that wasn't on the radar and certainly wasn't even in anybody's attention, signed by the Wolves in the offseason. I did go to the prospect showcase, spent some time, of course, in the Canes camp before he came to the Wolves camp, and that's Evan Vierling. And we talked a little bit about Vierling last time. He's a guy that he's a little older. He's 23. He's played, in the ECHL, a little bit of action in the AHL. But he was a guy that was drafted in the 5th round by the Rangers in 2020. And one thing I liked about him, he had a big year with Barrie Colts in the Ontario League. Now, Barrie is my hometown, so this is exciting. And so that's a lot of fun. 95 points in 60 games. And so he was a guy that when the Rangers drafted him, his trajectory was going up, and that was exciting. Last year, 22 points in 21 games in the ECHL, but this year he's on a tear right now. He's got 5 goals his last 8 games. What is going on with Evan Vierling?
Sometimes it's a mixture between, the right ingredients and the right opportunity. And in this league, you have to have that mindset of bringing it every night because you never know where you're going to get slotted up in the lineup. Some guy gets called up, another guy gets injured. Suddenly, here you are as a 4th liner, and you're up playing on the power play, and you have, Nikita Pavlichev as your center and a stud winger in Unger Sorum, and you don't have any time to breathe. You're show us what you got. And he's absolutely risen to the occasion of plugging up in that second line and not looking out of place at all in doing so. And, it's not necessarily like you see like, wow, he's blowing you away with his speed or his shot. Again, he's such a smart player. Yeah. He's, they utilize him on the penalty kill and on the power play. And that just goes to show, what this coaching staff thinks of him and how much they trust him to put him in all sorts of situations. And again, when you're kind of wondering what the lineup was looking like in the beginning of the season, and then you get just the natural player movement, who's going to step up? Well, this is the guy. He answered that question pretty quickly. And again, I said it before, I say it again. I love the stories of these guys who don't quit, who put their nose to the grindstone. It might take a franchise here or there or two, but then they can really show out and show what they're capable of doing. And I've loved the work ethic he's brought every night. And he went very quickly from like, who's this guy to he's got a fan following already with the Wolves fans. So they love him. And, it's going to be tough when, as this team gets healthier and you get more guys in there to move him down if he keeps playing like this. I mean, just putting the goals up, but, intense on the forecheck. I'm a big fan of his game, and I like to see, as the year goes on, what more can he bring to the table? Because, right, you're going to have guys like, Yaska coming back from injury who are going to be challenging for those top 6 spots. Are you going to let this guy take your minutes, or are you going to show him like this is my job now? So it's that competitive side of this league that, I love to see, like, what are you willing to do to keep it going? And I'm excited to see what he's got to bring.
Well, he may slide down with Skylar Brindamore and Josiah Slavin, which would be an outstanding third line, similar to what the Canes do. He's versatile, and one thing he's been doing the job on, as you say, in the specialty teams. He has a shorthanded goal, and I think he's had some success on the power play as well. So he's a guy that's he kind of come out of nowhere. But boy, it's going to be crowded once all these players return to the Wolves, and it's going to be interesting, as you say, to see, how that's going to play out. But he's definitely making a case to be one of those players getting lots of ice time as the season goes on. Really exciting stuff with Evan Vierling. Now, look, and Nikita Pavlichev. I just want to say this about him. I like him. I think he's a guy that continues to grow with Chicago. There were times last year where he got on a tear and he was scoring a lot of goals in a short period of time. But anyway, I think he's a good, solid center for that crew. Does a lot of the heavy lifting and really complements those two guys. So great line. If we look at the line you talked about as well, Andrew, and that's of course the top line with Ryan Suzuki centering for Bradly Nadeau and of course Justin Robidas. I want to talk about Justin Robidas for a minute. This guy. Every time I see him, I'm impressed by Justin Robidas. He's a smaller player, very stocky, but he's always doing something. Even with the Canes, when he get up in the exhibition games and so on, and last year in his call-up, he was, you could see him. He was noticeable. And this year, he's been playing the right side, which is kind of exciting. And he seems to have adapted quite nicely to that. He's got in his last 5 games, he's got 5 points. He's got 12 points in 14 games. He started a little bit slow, but he's really finding his way now. And he's a guy that, again, he does it all. He'll kill penalties, work the power play, whatever you want from Justin Robidas, you get it. What are you seeing with Justin this year so far?
I've said it again and again with this guy. It's just consistency and such a mature game from such a young player that has impressed me really since he showed up on the scene last year. And you know what you're going to get from him every single night. I can't really recall a whole lot of games where I'm like, well, Roby didn't really seem like he was on top of it. Like, even when he's not putting points in, he finds ways to contribute, defensively. He finds ways to, get the transition game going offensively. It's just it might not always show up on the score sheet, even though he does pretty regularly, but you always feel his presence in the game one way or another. And, he might not be the biggest guy out there, but he doesn't play small,
No.
And there's such a difference between being small and playing small. And, you can kind of get away with being small in this league. If you're skilled enough, you can't play small very often, especially at the next level. And I think that's what works out really well for Robidas, is that he has that mature 200-foot game. I love what he can bring defensively on top of what he can bring offensively. And, he doesn't care that he's not 6'5". He's going to play his game, and it's shown to work for him. And it's, there's a reason he's always been a part of that leadership group. He's you know what you're getting night in and night out. And when the coaches can rely on that, that speaks volumes for where you're going to go in this game, whether it's here, whether it's at the next level. He's got so much more runway ahead of him because of that mentality that he brings every night.
Well, and I think the move to right wing is a smart one. I think that'll give him a better opportunity to move forward with the Canes. We've already got, we got a mighty might already with Logan Stankoven, and he's proving that you don't have to be the biggest guy on the roster to make things happen. And he's certainly been off to a great start with the Canes as well. So I think Robidas, I think he's in the mix. I've talked about him for a long time with the same view that he just is a guy that he's strong on the puck. He's good in the faceoff dot. He can help out there because he's, again, he can do that good work as well. But it's exciting to see him on this line with a couple of real dynamite players in Ryan Suzuki and, of course, Bradly Nadeau. That line to me is really scary. And they're going to get their mojo going because now that Nadeau's back and kind of getting settled in again, Suzuki's been there all year from what I can tell. Boy, this is going to be a great line.
It was a great line last year too. So when I've already enjoyed seeing, from what I've seen from Nadeau going up to Carolina and then coming back here, even if it was just for a handful of games, you can already see what what he takes from that next level, whether it's from Rod or Captain Jordan Stahl or whoever. You can already feel that like this is a NHL player, making just those next level plays at speed. I think that's really the difference. The biggest difference between the NHL and the AHL is just these guys have a ton of talent for sure, but the plays happen so much faster at the next level. Yeah. When you see a guy who's ingrained in that speed, even for just, a couple of games, and then comes back here, it's like bang, bang, everything. They're just so much further ahead of everyone else. They might as well have cement in their skates. So So then now you put a playmaker like Ryan Suzuki with them, a absolute junkyard dog like Justin Robidas with him, and it was already a super dangerous line, but you just throw that little bit into the mix, and it's gonna be so much more. And Nadeau has been doing, obviously everyone knows about his shot and everything, but he's, been so much better, responsible defensively this year. Right. I've loved what I've seen from him on the forecheck, and it's when you can add those dimensions to your game on top of having an absolutely lethal shot. It's you go from just a pure sniper to just an all around great player. It adds a dimension to your team. It adds a dimension to that line. I'd love to see Ryan Suzuki shoot the puck a couple more times, but I don't. It's hard to not pass it off to Nadeau as often as you can. So, and we spent a lot of time on that second line. When you have to force so much attention to that top line, it opens up so many opportunities for those guys, and that's an adage that exists in all levels of hockey. So. You kind of felt that maybe they might have been a little one-dimensional last year where they relied too much on this line. Then once they started, that second line starts getting a little more attention, it opens up. Everyone feasts when everyone's playing well. It's one of the great things about this game. So, again, love what I'm seeing, and I think that there's even more for them to give us.
Yeah, and I mean the hope for a lot of us is that Bradly will get a chance in the top six where he can really start to show what he can do. Unfortunately, he was on that fourth line, which was a bit of a challenge. And I thought again he handled himself extremely well, doing some heavy lifting defensively, and playing hard on the puck and so on. And he's growing that part of his game, and I'm sure that's the focus for everyone. Is to get him to the point where, he can play in any situation. And as you say, he's an elite shooter, and he improved that, of course, scoring a goal with the Canes. So, yeah, Bradly, keep watching him. And he's a guy that'll continue to, round out his game. And, there'll probably be injuries at some point. We'll see him back up on the big club. And we'll be very excited for that. And I know a lot of folks certainly around the time that he was coming back, we're hoping he would hang around for a while because they really like the way he plays. So good for you to see him back in Chicago. And those of us who like to see him with games will have to hang on for a while. In any case, one other player I was going to mention on the forward side, Skylar Brindamore. We talk about him a lot. He's a guy that lunch pail guy, like his dad, just out there, making things happen. He's been scoring the odd goal as well. And just really brings, a certain dimension to this team that I think is critical. He, along with his line mate, Josiah Slavin, and I said before, they're very much like Stahl and Jordan Martinook. It's amazing, right? It's like a combination that really fits. So what are we seeing with Skylar? Is he continuing to get the job done with Chicago?
Yeah, I've said it before on this pod, and I'll say it again. He's basically a carbon copy of his dad's game. He's when he's kind of always, I noticed out there to start overtimes to take that opening face-off draw. And then once, I'm pretty sure he's won all of them. Now you can check my math on that, but once he wins it, he knows his role, and he goes to the bench, and they make a change immediately. And I love the selfless attitude of like, to go in there, win it for my team, and then sub out. There's just better options offensively. It's nothing against Skyler, but he's a guy who plays his role so well for that squad, both him and Slavin both. And it's so easy to just kind of take a look at the score sheets and just be like, okay, well, obviously, if Felix Unger Sorum, he's at the top of the list, he must be the best player. And that's not necessarily true all of the time, and you can't judge a player's value just based on what the numbers look like based on the score sheet. And he offers so many of those little things, and fighting and digging in those puck battles, and fighting out front for rebounds and loose change, and sacrificing himself on the penalty kill. I kind of maybe wish the penalty kill numbers were better, but that's not necessarily just like a Skyler thing. It's an entire everyone pulls together on that unit. When they all win, they're all together. When they get scored on, they're all together. So it's but he provides so much for that team that these coaches just they love this kid. They love what he can bring. And again, I'll be the first one to admit, again, freely on this podcast, that I was like, oh, okay, it's Rod's son, I get it. But here we are, year 2, and it's more than just a friend of the family. He's really helped pull this PK unit up and help pull this team up entirely, and he knows his role and plays it as well as you can ask of him.
Well, the Wolves are structured very much like the Hurricanes. It's a kind of by committee. You've got folks who have different types of roles, and I think Skyler certainly he's a guy that fills a very strong role. And as the season goes on, and you head towards the playoffs and so on, he's the kind of player that can really be a difference maker for the Wolves. I really look forward to see how that plays out this year, because I think he's a guy that can bring a lot more, and he's continuing to be an impressive player, I think, whenever I see him, for sure. Rounding out the forward side, I just want to ask you if you knew anything about these guys. Juha Jaska, you mentioned before, and of course, Giovanni Smith has not been around for a while. What's going on with the injury side?
Yeah, it's Jaska hasn't. I know Canes fans are pretty familiar with him being injured over the in the preseason.
Right.
From what I can reveal, he's still kind of battling that, getting closer to returning. I was kind of hoping by now he would have made it into the lineup, but sometimes these guys need a little extra time, and I think with as well as they've been playing, maybe we can kind of ease him into it. We don't need to plug him into that top 6 immediately. And Giovanni Smith was in there for a handful of games. I know a couple of weeks ago, I think he got dinged up, and I don't think it's too severe. Again, there's only so much I'm allowed to say. I need to keep my sources at the heart, but they're I don't expect either of these guys to be long term out or anything like that. It's just it's a fast paced game where guys get hit with all sorts of manners of pucks and bodies and sticks, and they're just going to need some time to get back on the mend.
Yeah, and as some of these players come back, of course, they're going to be significant adds for the Chicago team. I mean, Jaska, we know what he can do, and Giovanni Smith, he had a tremendous training camp with the Canes. So both of these guys can play a strong role and should strengthen and improve the overall Wolves team when they come back. So that's exciting. The defensive core, we've talked a lot about the D core, but boy, it's been kind of interesting as well. What's been going on with the D core?
It's been a blunder, I can tell you that. It's which I guess comes as no surprise with with Slavin and Chatfield going down up top, and then Legault with the unfortunate injury that he had. So, here's a couple of guys. I mean, on top of Legault, you have Nystrom and Fensore, who's been going back and forth like a yo-yo, and it's three guys that you're expected to lean on. All of a sudden, aren't they're not there. And again, no one in this league is going to feel bad for you. So who steps up? I gotta say, like, I knew that the kid was talented, but having a 19-year-old and Dominic Badinka doing what he's been doing has been just the happiest of surprises for me, and I'm sure for Coach Spiro Anastas, who coaches that defensive unit. So, Badinka has been awesome. Gavin Bayreuther has honestly been one of the I don't necessarily want to say surprising, because I've seen him play a couple of seasons over in Cleveland, and he's a solid player that you can rely on. But I don't think they were expecting to rely on him this much. And again, it's just in this league, you have to be ready for those opportunities, whether you're going to be on the third pairing or the first pairing. It could change in an instant. So he's back after, I think, a season or two over in Europe.
Right.
Just to provide that steady veteran presence that I think, once they had Ty Smith and Joachim Ryan leave over the offseason, kind of helped, fill that in. And he's honestly been one of the more like again, we weren't expecting you to be a hero, but we're glad that you're here kind of things. Like similar to Vierling, but not like in a came out of nowhere kind of thing. More as like you got a bigger role and you're running away with it. So we appreciate you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, looking at Gavin Bayreuther. Of course, he did play with Columbus for a couple of seasons. We saw him a fair bit there, and it's kind of interesting to see how things played out. He ended up with Lausanne and Switzerland last year. So another one of these situations where, you kind of go where you can play. But again, brought over as a veteran, could play the odd game with the Canes, but more importantly, I think to mentor these young guys in Chicago. And you mentioned Ty Smith and Joachim Ryan. Smith actually ended up in Russia. He's with Omsk, Avangard Omsk right now, which is kind of interesting. And Joachim Ryan is still a UFA. He has not signed a deal anywhere. So interesting how these things play out. But here we are with Bayreuther, and I think he's doing a real nice job, and he's been supplying some offense as well. Popped in some goals, and I think he's been really critical with Dominic Badinka, and Badinka I thought looked really good in the exhibition games with the Canes and so on. He saw some ice up there. They were playing him a fair bit, and one thing I noticed about Dom was he was not fazed by anything. Okay, like he'd go and he'd do anything, and he was calm. He was always kind of in control, saw the ice well, and really kind of suggested, boy, he's got to be older than 19 years old. I mean, what the heck, right? So yeah, and so I've been excited to hear what you're saying about Badinka, because again, relatively high draft pick, a second rounder for the Canes, a guy that they really wanted when they drafted him, and he had been playing with Malmo actually in the men's league there. So he was already playing against men, and so I think that's one of the things that has helped him in making the transition at this stage. And the Canes wanted to get him with Spiros Anastas and get him over here where this Chicago team could do it. So Badinka, again, he's going to just continue to get better. And as you say, through all of this defensive pair has been really critical, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And again, in spots where you weren't expecting to have them playing such a big role on a team that has sure it's kind of had its growing pains earlier in the year, but it's continuing its upward trajectory. It's been playing great hockey, and these guys are holding down the fort in their own end. And it's when you've had to have contributors you're not really expecting to step in the roles like that, it elevates your whole unit. And then you have other guys. Another guy I wanted to talk about was Bryce Montgomery.
Yes.
Another guy I wasn't expecting to see a whole lot of this year, and we've seen a lot of them. And so have the other team in front of the Wolves net, and it's been a nightmare for them because of it. And I love that element of his game, just that physicality. I mean, that was kind of like how I played when I was back in the day, big, real thick defender. So when I can see other guys doing it the same, like I get up for it. He's been in there physically. He's been clearing the front of the nets. He's been dropping the mitts where it's been called for it. And again, I wasn't sure how much of Montgomery we were going to see this year. You get the call, you got to rise up and you got to answer. Yeah. And he's picked up the phone and then some. So I've loved what I've been able to see out of him. On top of Badinka continuing to grow into his role. Beirut, they're showing the way. Himo Salmi holding it down. It's it's not just going to be one guy to replace the three really that have been called up, including Fensori, and that, although he's back down, which is
thankfully he's back. Yeah.
Then tomorrow he's going to get called back up, and then he's going to come back down again. But he's again, it's all a collective group effort, as I've said before, to get things going, and everyone stepped up. It's one thing to say, this guy's got the talent, this, that, or the other, but everyone's rising to the occasion and answering the call. And that, to me, that comes from coaching, to put these guys in positions to succeed, even if the water level might be above their heads while these guys are swimming with the current anyway. So that's how you get a team, no matter what the call-ups are, the injuries, this, that, and the other. This is how you get a team to win.
Well, Bryce Montgomery, we've seen him a couple of years at the Prospect Showcase. I was kind of amazed he was in the ECHL. I thought he should be in the American Hockey League. And he's a guy that, whenever I've seen him, has accorded himself well. He skates well. He's a big man, of course. And as you say, he can lay it on pretty thick. And again, he's someone that, he's getting a real chance here. So that's exciting. Alexei Himasalmi, of course, he was in last year. He's a guy that, again, was very highly rated by the Canes and has kind of been up and down, but he's certainly stepping up right now and doing a great job. As we wrap up the D, I'd be remiss if I don't mention Dominic Fensori, because I always mention Dom just because he's one of my favorite players. Dom, of course, got off to an incredible start and then started this yo-yo with the Canes and sits right now with 11 points in 11 games. He's actually in fifth place in the AHL for defensemen. So he's hanging in there nicely, but he's a guy that, again, he can do it all.
Yeah, and again, kind of in that same mold of Justin Robidas, where he might be small, but he doesn't play small. And some bigger guys have tried to bully him, and he just bulldogs right back at him. And I love that mentality from him. Such a smooth skater, both with and without the puck. And that adds such a dimension to, transition the puck out from defense into offense. And you can get that puck up to guys like Unger Sorum or Suzuki and have them distribute. Right. It adds so much to the team. So it's nice when it's here. I kind of hope Carolina gets a little healthy so he can stay here a little longer. But, he's another guy who can, if he gets the call up to the Hurricanes, he rises to the occasion. He plays his game, and I think that this organization does a good job of coaching them up to where it's such a seamless transition to go up to the Hurricanes. Because all I kept reading about is like, wow, Legault, wow, Nystrom, wow, Nadeau. Like, you hear these guys come up and they don't really look like your typical rookies, and I love to see that because, I see these guys here. And yeah, I want him to play in Chicago and I want him to help this team out for sure. But you're going to root for these guys when they go up to Carolina and they get their shots. So, it's the same thing for Dom. And the last thing I'll say, I had a 50th anniversary post about the Edmund Fitzgerald, and I didn't realize that Dom was a big Edmund Fitzgerald guy, and he liked the post, and that was the most recognition I got from him ever on that.
I think that's great.
Oh, it was fantastic, So he's really embodying that Great Lakes spirit being here in Chicago, and I love
Very
that.
Nice. Well, just as we wrap up the D, I think I'd be remiss if I don't mention the incredible contribution with the Hurricanes by Yoel Nystrom. And we had talked about him last month. Very excited about Yoel coming over and some of the things that he was showing and certainly showed in training camp with the Canes and the prospect showcase and so on. I think he is definitely stating very strongly that this guy's ready for the National Hockey League. And his last game in particular, where he played over 20 minutes and just was outstanding, 2 assists. I don't know if you're going to get him back.
That's what I said. Wow. I was like, well, those 7 games were fun. And here we go. But again, you root for those guys to take those opportunities and to absolutely run with it. So yeah, I loved seeing that. I didn't even think that he was going to play this as good as he has. And not that he was necessarily bad down here in Chicago, but just he just took his took that call and ran with it. And I love to see it. I love to see the recognition from the fans and the coaching staff. And yeah, it's just one of those things where I might not see him again, but I'm not gonna lament on it. We still have a lot of good young talented defenders down here, and I hope I don't see him again. It would be wonderful for him if I don't. Maybe once Slavin and Chatfield are healthy, we might be seeing a little more of them, and then again, it was going to have that same effect it had on Nadeau, where now you have this guy who's used to playing at that speed. All of a sudden, he looks like a completely different player at this level, and you're going to wonder, like, oh, okay, well, what's he doing here? But I will gladly accept him when that day comes.
Well, yeah, and again, and sure, it's very possible he returns to the Wolves, and that would be great for him. Of course, he's still finding his way in North America and learning the system and so on. But boy, wouldn't he be a great addition to add back to the Wolves and certainly shore up the Blues? So very exciting there. Moving on to the goaltending. Last month, we were talking about some concerns. Nikita Quap was manning one of the goaltending spots, and Amir Miftakov had just come back from the Canes camp and some work there where he really wasn't playing particularly well. And so things were a little bit concerning. Now, what are we seeing these days with the goaltending side?
I feel like it took about a month, but I think we're finally stable here. With Caden Primo coming back makes an absolute world of a difference. Now that once Toronto sent him, put him on waivers, Carolina, being the only team that claimed him, was allowed to snag him and send him immediately to Chicago without opening him back up. So now that Primo, he had a tough situation in Toronto. They're not really the team that they have been in years past. So but at this level, he's about as good of a goalie as you can ask for. I would say pretty parallel to kind of what we got with Spencer Martin there. So
right.
Now, you can take some of that weight off of Miftakov, who, did admirably, I'll say. Sure, he kind of had some of his, like, what are you doing moments. Then he had some of his, wow, that was amazing moments. So what it offers is stability. You can lean on your veteran and Primo. You have another guy who's talented and has success across the seas and Miftakov, and then you have your 2 younger guys and Hazaev and Quap down in Greensboro. And now we saw one game of Ruslan Hazaev here, and I thought he looked really good. I thought he
played well.
I don't know if he's just not getting a ton of support down there in Greensboro. Because I guess from what I've seen, again, just looking at the numbers, I know it doesn't speak the whole story, but looked like he kind of had a rough start to the season there. I kind of was worried about him, but then you saw him in Chicago, and you're like, holy Hannah, this guy is. You feel like he's taken a step after last season, which is what you want to see, is just kind of steady growth from these young goaltenders. And basically, so what I'm saying in the long run is that I think you have more of a structure here for all four guys, where you get that pivotal ice time through those young goaltenders to keep working on their game without the intensity of the speed and the shots of the AHL. You get just an absolute anchor in that, and Primo. You got your backup in Miftakov, and you again. We've already seen the results, points in 5 straight games. So as we continue forward, that like what's going on in net now can even become a strength as the year goes on, and it's just again it adds another layer to a team that's continuing to play well, gather points, move up in the standings, and I'm relieved. Is that I was a little worried there for a second if Primo wasn't going to be coming back, like what the plan was going to be, but happy to see it.
Yeah, and I think the Canes probably felt relatively comfortable that they get a chance to reclaim Caden Primo. And, of course, they signed him in the offseason. They did that deal with Montreal to get him. So he's a guy that they wanted. They definitely – I think he was earmarked for Chicago right from the start. And I think he's a guy that again, as you say, his American Hockey League performance has been amazing. And at different times, he's done the same for the Montreal Canadiens. He went through some stretches where he was outstanding. I think the Leafs situation, as you say, you can see overall their numbers this year. They, of course, Anthony Stolarz was lights out last year. He's not so much this year. And I think that's part of what the Leafs are going through as a team. They're just not nearly as good. And they're missing some key players that have moved on. Miftakov, good to see he's starting to go. Of course, he's a good buddy of Andrei Svechnikov. So he's got a real strong connection with the Hurricanes. Miftakov, as you mentioned, of course, he had played in North America for a while. He went back over to play with Akbars and was tremendous in the KHL. And that's one of the reasons the Canes really wanted to sign him. Again, finding his way, new team, new situation, a little bit of a tough camp. So, I think he'll find his mojo. And I think, as you say, these two guys are going to be outstanding. And boy, to have a guy like Ruslan Kazeev right behind in Greensboro, he's going to get lots of playing time. And I know Nikita Kwap just went down. So he's finally down in Greensboro as well. I think he went down the 17th. So that's kind of fun. We'll watch these two guys and see how they're going to do. So lots going on with the team. In general, playing well, started off, it's been kind of a mixed season, but starting to get some of these players back. And I think similar to the Hurricanes, I think it's thumbs up. As we take a look at the next month, what are you looking at in terms of the Wolves? What do you think they're going to be able to do? And where do you see any of the tough matchups?
Yeah, they have a 5-game road trip coming up to finish off the month of November, starting off in sunny Manitoba coming up. And, the Moose they're a better team than they have been the last couple of years, which was really bad. Now they're kind of like middle of the pack, but they're always kind of, I don't want to say kind of like rivals, because everyone feels like a rival when you play them 12 times a year. But, Spencer Martin, Pyotr Kochetkov, Dustin Tokarski, all these goalies always seem to get in mix-ups with the Manitoba Moose. So I'm looking for Montgomery or Yanni Turcotte to be big factors in this weekend series coming up. Well, technically it starts on Thursday, but it feels like a long weekend. But then they also have Rockford and Manitoba again. So lot of Moose going to be coming up over these next few games. I think 5 matchups over the next 6 games are Moose. So it's gonna have that bit of playoff feel. You're gonna really hate seeing Manitoba by the time it's all set.
Oh man, that's insane.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so this, like I said, this has been a squad that they're used to seeing 8-10 times a season.
Right.
And then you also have Rockford in there. And Rockford kind of had their number a little bit early in the season. I believe Nick Lardis has been hurt. He was leading the league in scoring for a little bit. And Oliver Moore, who was one of those guys where I saw him, I'm like, what's this guy doing in this league? Chicago had the same idea. He's up with the Blackhawks now. So you're going to have a different team, but it's still ever as dangerous. They have a couple of good young goaltenders. Fortunately, the name of the one guy from, I believe, Belarus, who really impressed me. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I will go ahead and look that up. But then you have Drew Comesso there, who, highly talented. He's been there for a little while. And just always dangerous. Brett Sini feel like he's been there for a decade. He's been wonderful for that team for as long as I can remember, and been a real big leader, producing the points. Again, he's another one of those guys he's not the biggest, but he's got a snarl to his game. It's kind of Marchand like, where he's always just in your face and putting points up, and sometimes you just want to wring his neck, but at the end of the day, you have to respect him and what he could bring. So, those Rockford games are always they're always white knucklers, in one form or another. So that's
what about Milwaukee? There's several games with Milwaukee coming up as well. What are you seeing with that hockey club?
Milwaukee I've seen them with just absolute top line talent, and I've seen them with a bunch of nobodies, and they're dangerous no matter who is in that lineup. I think Carl Taylor, who's been the head coach in Milwaukee for what seems like the better part of the last 10 years now, he's one of the best in the business at this level, and I think in this game really overall. And I've always loved what he's been able to pull out, again, whether it's Yaroslav Askarov and Joakim Kemmel, these top flight picks, or whether it's Ty Felleber, who comes up out of the ECHL and all of a sudden he's an absolute menace against you. It doesn't necessarily seem to matter who, like, the draft pedigree or how well regarded these guys are, if they're top picks or if they're journeymen. He finds a way to pull out the best out of them. And again, they're second in the division. In all of my time covering the AHL, I've never seen Milwaukee have a bad season. And it's like, it's not necessarily infuriating, but it's like, okay, you see Iowa on the schedule, you're not quite as worried. Then you see Milwaukee and you're like, oh, Milwaukee again. But it's a testament to what that coaching staff is able to do with no matter what they're given to by Nashville or anyone. They find a way to pull the best out of these players. It's kind of the standard that you want at this league, no matter who's in the lineup, that you're going to be getting a good game out of them. So it's a good bar setter. Chicago had one earlier a couple of weeks ago where played well, lost it in overtime on their ice. I think that was a school day game. That's why I don't have a great memory. Right. But like I said, it's one of those benchmark games. Like, where are we at as a team? Like, we know if we can go in there, get a couple points against them, play really well, that we're on the right track, because historically, this is the team. Like, you're not gonna see where you're at as a team by playing the Iowa Wild. And I don't mean to disparage anyone in that organization, but they've been in the basement for most of my time, whereas Milwaukee's been up here. So that's kind of where the high watermark is. And once you get out of this road trip and out of this war with Manitoba, they're waiting there on the other side. So it'll be a good mark to see kind of where this team's at as we kind of get into December and get into the real meat of the season. Like, it still kind of feels like everyone's figuring it out a little bit
Right.
here, but the points are gonna matter just more and more as we go on. So I'm excited and looking forward to kind of seeing what we're gonna see out of this team, because they're showing that they're no slouches either in this division. So it's going to be just continued battles and seeing kind of who, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and
Right.
we're going to see who's going to end up with it as we go on.
Well, just to wrap up then, Andrew, any players that we should be kind of keeping an eye on over this month of a lot of Manitoba and Milwaukee? Who should we be putting the eye on?
Well, I kind of highlighted Yannick Turcotte and Bryce Montgomery already, and I'll kind of continue to do that, because as you see these guys again and again, as the chirps start going back and forth, you're just gonna hate them more and more and more. So I think your team might be down a goal or two, and you need that spark coming. Those are gonna be the guys who are gonna answer the bell. And if it's going to get chippy, they're going to be the ones that are going to be right in the middle of it. And they're the usual suspects for sure. The biggest guys out there, and they know how to take care of their teammates. And they've already shown it time and time again this season. We're only a month in, so it's I'll highlight those guys for sure. And while Nikita Pavlichev's not known for that, he's 6'7". He's the best. There was a funny sequence in the Cleveland game where I'm forgetting the name of the monster, but he's not the biggest guy. He's about 5'9". Kind of Pavlichev makes some contact with the goaltender, and he gets a swipe from this guy, and Nikita just goes, "No, that's a bad idea." Again, he's not necessarily known for picking up the penalty minutes, but at his stature, when the rough stuff comes going, he's not necessarily going to say no either. So I expect it to be a grind over these next few games here with the Moose, and Pavlichev can contribute physically, can contribute with his stick. I think he's going to be a big X factor for him into this mini playoff series, kind of with the Moose.
Well, it'd be great if the second line with Pavlichev leading those guys, of course, with Evan Vierling and Felix Unger Sorum, can continue their fine play. And you have to expect that the big line with Ryan Suzuki, Justin Robidas, and of course Bradly Nadeau, they're going to be key as well in this road trip. So it's going to be fun to see this. We'll be watching closely to see how it all plays out. Andrew, as always, it's been just great fun talking the Chicago Wolves. Where can folks find you?
Yeah, so I continue my written works with On Tap Sports Network. We're Chicago-based, just every Chicago team out there outlet, and I continue my stuff there. You can find me on, I'm going to continue to say Twitter until the end of time. That would be at Andrew _Rinaldi _. And again, I continue to give updates on the team, live tweet during the games. I love chatting with fans about anything you might have questions about, anything you want to talk about. If you couldn't tell, I love talking about the game of hockey. So it's great to share it with everyone out there. And it's why I continue to do this over. This would be it's been 5 years now, and I've loved every bit of it. So if anyone reaches out to me, it'll help me continue to keep on loving it, because it's been a wonderful experience getting to know all of the fans and to be able to share this what this team has been able to do, and all the players that have come through and all the wonderful people that work with the team. It's been a real treat, and I feel very blessed to be in the position I am to do it.
Well, listen, it's great fun talking hockey with you as well. So it's, we all kind of enjoy that. And, your knowledge of what's going on with the Wolves. I know Wolves fans and Hurricanes fans are delighted to hear this. And as always, thanks so much for spending time with us, Andrew. It's been great fun as usual. For those of you who've been watching or listening, Andrew and I, of course, are delighted you spent time with us. If you like this episode, please press the like button. If you have any questions or comments or just want to say hi, to Andrew or myself or other members of Storm Tracker, please leave those in the comment section down below. And of course, if you want to be alerted of future episodes of Storm Tracker, please press the subscribe and the bell buttons, and we'll alert you just as soon as they are available. Once again, Andrew and I thank you very much for spending time with us, and we look forward to getting together with you real soon right here on Storm Tracker.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends for everything with the Canes. You need Storm Tracker.